Hello, and welcome to the first of a four-part video series on our proposed revisions to our Fraud International Standard on Auditing, or ISA 240 revised. I'm Julie Corden, and I'm a member of the IAASB and the chair of the Fraud Task Force. In this video, I will give you an overview of the key changes to the standard. One of the drivers for this project are the many corporate failures and scandals across the globe in recent years, which have brought fraud to the forefront and led to questions from stakeholders about the role and responsibilities of auditors relating to fraud in an audit of financial statements. Therefore, the IAASB started information gathering activities in early 2020. The goal was to further consider the issues and challenges in applying extant ISA 240. Following this research, the IAASB published a discussion paper on fraud and going concern in September 2020 to explore the differences between public perceptions about the role of the auditor and the auditor's responsibilities in a financial statement audit as it relates to fraud. Based on the feedback received, the IAASB decided that it was in the public interest to revise ISA 240, and a project proposal was approved at the board meeting in December 2021. The IAASB identified 4 project objectives that should be addressed by the revision to ISA 240 and that support the public interest. The first objective is to clarify auditors' role and responsibilities for fraud in an audit of financial statements. The second is to promote consistent behavior and facilitate effective responses to identify risks of material misstatement due to fraud. The project's third objective is to enhance ISA 240 to reinforce the importance throughout the audit of the appropriate exercise of professional skepticism in fraud-related audit procedures. And finally, the last objective is to enhance transparency on fraud-related procedures where appropriate, including strengthening communications with those charged with governance and strengthening the reporting requirements in ISA 240 and other relevant ISAs. The IAASB identified 7 proposed changes that will address the key issues identified in the project proposal and that will drive consistency in practice and change in auditors' behavior. I'll walk you through these 7 changes. Firstly, proposed ISA 240 clarifies and emphasizes the auditor's responsibilities related to fraud. Changes are being proposed to set a clear and affirmative description of the auditor's responsibilities related to fraud in an audit of financial statements and reduce the ambiguity between the inherent limitations of an audit and the auditor's responsibilities by decoupling the two concepts. The second change I would like to talk about is the reinforcement of the exercise of professional skepticism throughout the audit. Enhancements are being proposed to reinforce the importance of remaining alert throughout the audit engagement for information that is indicative of fraud and maintaining professional skepticism regardless of past experience or when efforts to conceal fraud could be manifested through pressure on the engagement team. Thirdly, the risk identification and assessment section of proposed ISA 240 is enhanced by applying a fraud lens on what is already required by ISA 315 revised 2019. The IAASB also proposes restructuring the risk assessment section of ISA 240 by aligning it closer to the structure in ISA 315 revised 2019 to demonstrate the integrated relationship. The proposed changes are also intended to focus the auditor on identifying fraud risk factors, which many lead to risks of material misstatement. Another proposed key change is to emphasize the importance of communication about fraud-related matters with management and those who are charged with governance throughout the audit. The IAASB is proposing changes that embody the ongoing nature of communications with management and those charged with governance about fraud-related matters at appropriate time in all stages of the audit. The standard also highlights the importance of a robust two-way and open dialogue with active participation by all parties. The fifth key change relates to circumstances when fraud or suspected fraud is identified. The changes proposed are aimed at enhancing clarity around the auditor's response in such circumstances. The IAASB proposes including a separate section with new and enhanced requirements if fraud and suspected fraud are identified, with the goal to develop a more robust work effort for the auditor. Another key change is the proposed enhancement to the auditor's report to reinforce the transparency about matters related to fraud. The IAASB proposes that the auditor applies a fraud lens to the filtering mechanism used in ISO 701 when determining key audit matters, with the goal to include more key audit matters related to fraud in the auditor's report. Last but not least, the IAASB proposes new and enhanced documentation requirements to align more with the foundational standard on audit documentation, ISO 230, as well as documentation requirements in ISO 315. The auditor will document the matters discussed regarding the susceptibility of material misstatement due to fraud, the key elements of understanding obtained when making inquiries related to fraud or performing risk assessment procedures related to fraud, and the results of the procedures they perform. We opened our public consultation for these proposed revisions on February 6th, and we ask you to share your feedback by June 5th, 2024. The comments received on exposure will be considered by the IAASB starting at the September 2024 board meeting. Our target for approval of the final standard is in Q1 2025. Now that we have provided you with a brief overview of the reason behind the revision of ISO 240, the key public interest issues we are trying to address, as well as the key changes proposed, we would love to hear what you think. Please share your views using the response template available on the IAASB website. On our website, you can also find further information, as well as 3 more videos diving deeper into some of the changes proposed. We have videos related to the auditor's responsibilities, the auditor's response when fraud or suspected fraud is identified, and transparency in the auditor's report. Thank you for watching this video.